Hello everyone. On this Tuesday evening, I want to give you a little heads up about the video that you're going to see. Actually, it's a flashback to the past, a compilation of Thanksgiving past. And we've got Halloween is in the rear view mirror. We have Thanksgiving on the horizon. And like so many of you, you're like me, I think, in that Thanksgiving is our favorite holiday. So I'm already starting to think about what kind of table positioning I want to have, what size and shape of tables I want to have. Do I want to, like last year, put them in the parlor? Do I want to have them here in the kitchen? All sorts of decisions for me to make. And I thought it might be helpful if I reflected back on some of my Thanksgiving pasts in terms of centerpieces, colors, table linens, that kind of thing, to see if something inspires me. And it might inspire you as well. So while I am on the road, I thought you might appreciate Stuart's putting together this anthology of turkey days just for you. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, well, holiday season is almost here. We've got Thanksgiving on the horizon, and before we know it, we're going to be hanging stockings by the fire. But those aren't the stockings that I am thinking about right now. As we are talking about everything cozy and comfortable, I am thinking about my favorite sock brand, Bombas. Absolutely love these, whether it's the merino wool blend, the rag calf socks, the cashmere blend calf socks. My kiddos, my family loves them too. They will all be getting socks in their stockings. And if you want to feel cozy inside and out, then I definitely encourage you to use the code right here on the screen, because you will not regret it. It will make you feel cozy inside and out, because for every one purchase, one is donated. And by the way, it's boot season, and I especially like them for that. They're extra thick, they're extra cushy. Well, let's just say they're extra cozy. So use the code right here. Well, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. You know, I've lived in this house for 28 years, and for 27 of those years, I have been the Thanksgiving house. My friends, my family, they love coming here. It's very traditional. And every year I try to really please them and even amaze them a little bit with what I do as a tablescape. Every year I draw inspiration from the garden. So when I went outside this year to kind of find what my Thanksgiving table muse was going to be, unquestionably, by far, the winner were these gorgeous early wonder camellias from the Southern Living Plant Collection. I love the fact that even though they're a non-traditional color, they are very seasonal, because this is the time of year they come into their own. But I really didn't want to give up on those traditional things we think about at Thanksgiving time, like pumpkins and pine cones, those kind of rustic, earthy elements. So here's what I decided to do. I took my secondary inspiration from the container on my table. It's just a rectangular copper planter. It's waterproof. And so I thought I would just spray paint those pine cones and berries and leaves with the same kind of copper sheen. And as it turns out, they're exactly the same shade, the same amount of glitter, the same amount of reflection that should look beautiful with candlelight on my Thanksgiving table. So how I put it together was really very simple. I just took those dried elements and I put them in first. And then I found some small little vases that I tucked inside between those different adornments. And then I put the camellias into them. Now they'll stay fresh for a really long time. And what I found was that for up to 3 days, if you like to set your table early, these camellias will even last out of water in a cool room. So that way I can set my table in advance and I can put them on the napkins. Everybody gets one of their own. these gorgeous camellias. They can then take them home. They can use them as a boutonniere or a corsage or put them by their bedside table. But I think it makes a wonderful little keepsake of their time here for Thanksgiving. So just basically add a lot of candlelight, a lot of goodwill and laughter and love. And I think you'll have an amazing Thanksgiving with these gorgeous camellias from the Southern Living Plant Collection. And happy Thanksgiving from my house to yours. Well, next Thursday is Thanksgiving, and if you guys are like me, you're getting ready to set a beautiful table and deciding what your centerpiece will be for the big feast. And I've got a project for you that could not be easier, inspired by the garden. Right now, you probably have all sorts of pumpkins on display outside, and as soon as Thanksgiving is over, these pumpkins are probably going to be relegated to the chickens or the compost pile. So why not press them into service and use them as a beautiful centerpiece and make decoupage pumpkins? It could not be easier, you guys. All you need to have is either some Mod Podge glue or some spray adhesive. If you're using Mod Podge, obviously you're going to want a paintbrush, and then some clear glossy enamel. And then this is where you guys can have fun. Get your kiddos involved. Go outside and just clip some beautiful fern fronds, some delicate vines. I've got some Nandina branches here. I've got some soft caress mahonia, and look at these gorgeous, gorgeous tendrils of this Boston ivy. The color is just beautiful. Japanese maple leaves would also be lovely. And then all you're going to do is take whatever your foraged items are, and you're going to compress them under some heavy books, or in my case, I've got a couple of wooden cutting boards that I've placed a heavy pumpkin on. That way it gives you a flat surface that's a little bit easier to work with. Then you just take your beautiful foliage, give it a spritz or a painting of some glue, spray glue or Mod Podge, and then you're just going to adhere it to the pumpkin itself. Now, obviously, a smooth pumpkin works a lot better than a knucklehead or some of those pumpkins that have lots of texture to them, and you're just going to basically paint that foliage onto the pumpkin itself. Again, I found that the more delicate the foliage, I think, the more beautiful. Then when you're completely done, you're going to give it a spray of some clear gloss enamel, which will help illuminate it and reflect the shine from your candlelight and the crystal that might be on your table. If some of the foliage starts to detach, don't worry about it at all, because it gives it this really beautiful 3D kind of dimensionality that I think is fabulous and really dramatic. So it couldn't be easier. Go out, use what you've already got, get your kids involved, and make a really dramatic centerpiece inspired by the garden. Well, if I am lighting the candles, that means I am putting the final touches on my holiday table, and I'm really quite pleased with how it turned out, particularly given its starting point, which some of you may recall was a really tacky thrift store find, a wreath that I deconstructed and I think really elevated it in an elegant way with the help of some spray paint, some, I think, very judicious composition, and I think just a little bit of creativity. So let's talk about how this table came together from the very beginning to the very end, what some design inspiration muses were for me, and then also some really great design tips. So let's just decompose this table and see how it came together. Well, a lot of you will remember the starting point of this gorgeous centerpiece. If I do say so myself, I think it's pretty gorgeous. What do you think, Stuart?
I agree.
Pretty elegant. It started out as a $3.50 wreath that we got at a local thrift store, and I just took it apart and then I reassembled it, but not in terms of its wreath form, but in a centerpiece form. And by doing that, I think it really upped the elegance ante of it. So I had a couple of cans of spray paint. I have talked about this before, and at the end of the video, we will put the links to the spray paint that I used and some of the different elements that were important in the construction of it. So the base of it is just a brass bowl form that I got on another thrift store trip. I just deconstructed the wreath and I took apart the various elements that appealed to me at the outset when I saw the wreath. And that was these beautiful gourd patina gourds. There were a few different varieties of them. There were some gold-tipped pine cones or brass-tipped pine cones, and I just really loved the way it looked. So then what I did was I took the frame that it was on, and basically it was just a padded wire frame that had some floral tape on it, and I spray painted it in a similar gold. Again, the links to the spray paint are in the video or in the description below. Now, because I wanted to fluff it out a little bit more, I spray painted some of the tacky leaves that had glitter on them and were in a color that wasn't part of my vision. I spray painted those as well, and then I just scattered them about so they would look as if they almost had been blown by the wind into the composition. And then, because to me it's all about layering and textures, I got some Nandina berries from my own garden, and I sprayed some of them in that same gold or brass colored spray paint, but others I left in their original state so that the color would kind of come through, and I just sprayed them with a clear enamel. There's some on this side and there's some on this side, and I just tucked them in and about the composition as I had it constructed at that point in time.
Works really well.
It does work pretty well. Stuart, do you recognize this ochre that we took
yes,
from Garden Design? I actually have a couple more that I need to sprinkle in here. And I love the way it picks up all of the different hues in the tablecloth, which I have shared with you also in the past. The link to it, but we will once again, we will put that link. I think I got mine overnight, Stuart, so people still have time to replicate this look. So after I did that, then it was kind of an existential moment for me on if I wanted to keep it really simple or if I wanted the maximalist in me to come out. And so I just decided to go with abundance, because Thanksgiving is all about abundance. And I wanted to pick up the orange hues. And this was determined by what it looked like once I put the tablecloth down. So I wanted to pick up these really vibrant, almost fluorescent orange hues. And so only the orange real pumpkins, these little Jack B. Littles, did I put back in place. And I did give them just a little sheen of just a clear gloss, so it would capture the candlelight and would reflect just the ambient light overall. Now, as a final touch, because it still wasn't as reminiscent of the garden as I wanted it to be, I bought these gorgeous cabbage roses at Trader Joe's. They were $8.99 a bunch. Now, here's a little tip, Stuart, that you may not, this may surprise you. So these roses are actually in tiny little votive cups that I got off of Amazon last year. You may recognize those because I used them in a Halloween candle arrangement earlier, but the color of them is kind of amber, so it just kind of goes away. You don't see them. And then just the beauty of the cabbage roses are at their peak. And I have had these roses in waiting to put into this composition for 3 days. So that's how long lasting they are. Again, I just got them at Trader Joe's. If they didn't have cabbage roses, you could use another flower, either from your garden or someone else's garden, but that picks up that orange and kind of apricot hue. And those were the two hues that I really was concentrating on. But then I also wanted to pick up on the golds. So I just went outside and foraged for some golden redbud leaves. So then I just scattered some gold leaves in there because I wanted that natural, almost dried component to the entire arrangement. Now, I love, whoever made this comment, I absolutely loved it, because even though I'm all about elegance and beauty and layered beauty, I am also about practicality. And one or two of you commented and said, but my goodness, this takes up so much table space. Isn't it an impediment to your dining guests? And yes, it is. You know, as a rule, we know not to make flower arrangements on your table too high so that guests can see across the table to the other guests. Now, this one isn't necessarily that high, but it is broad. So what I do is I set my table early so I can enjoy it for as long as possible. Not only myself, but if I have any guests that are coming in between now and Thanksgiving, they can enjoy it also. But then after all of my guests arrive, while we are in that inevitable period where food is getting prepped, people are coming and going, but after everyone sees my gorgeous composition and they take pictures of it, and I have documented it, then this is actually on a tray, on a wicker tray, and I remove the tray before we dine, and I set it in the window. So these elements largely come away, and then there is room for all of us to put our plentiful bottles of wine, gravy, butter, all of those kinds of things. And at that point, it's more about just celebration than it is about creating an elegant atmosphere. And so whoever commented on that, please let me know, because it was so insightful of you, and it is something that I probably would have failed to tell you otherwise. So yes, I do remove it before we eat, which might seem like a shame, but that's the value of putting it up, putting it in place, and styling it well in advance. Well, you guys, we've got just a few more days before Thanksgiving, which gives me a little bit more time to stock up and resupply what I consider to be holiday essentials. Now, I try to get dripless tapers because I love using taper candles in addition to just votive candles and anything that might come in a self-contained little box or little canister or something like that. I like using them and lighting them when I'm meditating in the morning. If it's just Hubs and myself sitting in front of the fire, I will light them on the mantelpiece because I just love the quality and the kind of hygge environment that they create. So I order them online, and as always, I will put links in the description below so you guys know where I get them. Now, when I say I get tapers, I get both real candles like this one, but I also get battery operated tapers, and you guys have seen these before. I talked about them quite a bit last Christmas, and I'll put the link to these also, but I love them because you can use them, and they really do look like a candle. And you can set it on different settings so that one will look more like a candle or off. They do come with a remote to turn them on and off. Now, something else that I like to have on hand, and I've showed you this before, is sometimes it will be less than straight and on center, which drives me a little bit crazy. So I use something just called Stickum. This is kind of like a waxy substance for your wax candles. You put it at the base and it helps secure it into the candle holder. These bobushes, I'm not really sure how to pronounce them. I guess that's my first question of the day for this segment. If you know how to pronounce it, let me know. But these are just little glass kind of platforms that you put over the candle, and it will then protect your candle holder from all of the drips and the mess that the candle makes, and it makes cleanup a little bit easier. If you have stocked up on your votive candles and you're just using them in standard cups, if you want to keep it from settling in at the bottoms, here is an easy solution. If you put a few drops of water at the base of your votive candle holder, then that makes it very easy to remove the votive stub and it will fall right out. You don't have to scrape away the wax or put it in the freezer or whatever. This works brilliantly. I find striking a match I don't know, I just enjoy the sensation of striking a match. I get great pleasure out of it. See, I just find, I'm not a pyromaniac, I promise you, but I just take pleasure in, I guess, the ritual of lighting a candle. It's all part of the experience itself. I buy fireplace matches, which I always like to have in stock. And you may ask, well, what about the strike pad? Well, if I've got them in a pretty container like this, then I just tape the strike pad to the bottom of the container and it is readily available to light my fire, Stuart, to light my fire. Well, there's all of my candle and illumination essentials for the holidays, but I've got several kitchen essentials you might want to find out about, so make sure you stay tuned for the next segment. Well, the centerpiece pretty much dictated the rest of the table. And here's how that came together. So I am someone, and here's my question of the day. I am someone who has lots of table linens. I really love them. And more importantly, I really use them. Sometimes I use them right side up. Sometimes I even flip them and use them upside down to give me more variety. But in this case, because I'm introducing a little bit more blue into my home, I wanted one that had some blue in it. And I found this one. I got it off of Amazon. It was not prohibitively expensive, and I loved it because it was just so autumnal, and I thought it would just so beautifully showcase the centerpiece. I loved the jewel tone colors in it, and I really wanted to emphasize that. So once I got my tablecloth in place, then I needed to decide on what kind of china, what kind of flatware, what kind of crystal I wanted to use. And here were a couple of different options that I struggled with. One, I could go in a more elegant way, and the other way is a little bit more rustic. Now, one thing I do know is the importance of at least one type of dishware, whether it's fine china or it's pottery, that you have a place setting of 12. And my wedding china is Christian Dior malachite. I absolutely loved it when we selected it, and I love it now. I have a number of different serving pieces, and more importantly, I have a place setting of 12. Now, if I have more guests than 12, obviously I will have to use a different kind of plates and bowls to go along with it. But in this case, my options, those which I had a full place setting of 12 plates, were this malachite Christian Dior, or I have just some basic, more pottery types. I think these may have been Threshold at Target one year. I can't remember, but I did buy 12 of these. And then I have just my everyday, my white Williams Sonoma that I use every day. Now, I could have used any of them, and in the past, I have used depending on how my table setting evolved, I have used all of them. Well, when I put down the plate by itself, I wasn't sure if I liked it. I thought it might look a little too busy, but then I just decided to play up the jewel tones. I did love the way the gold rim on it, which also can read as brass, matched and replicated the brass and the gold of the centerpiece. Can you see that, Stuart? And then one of the reasons that I love my Oneida flatware is because it also has some gold on it. It's not just stainless, but it also has some gold on it. So that way I can use disparate kind of elements and still there's a cohesion to them. So I then, once I had my flatware in place and I had my china in place, all I had to do then was bring it together with some crystal. Now, I have enough crystal of the water goblets to set the entire table, but I only have so many wine glasses. So I used two different types, alternating them at the different place settings. At one, I have one type of wine glass, and at the other, I have another. These glasses were a thrift store find. I think I got them at Goodwill for Easter one year. They have made a reappearance on my dining room table for Thanksgiving. So then I needed to decide on what kind of napkin linens I wanted to use. Well, here are a number of kitchen essentials that I always like to have on hand for the holidays. So starting with hot tea. I absolutely have to have different varieties, different flavors, different scents of hot tea available on hand at all times for anyone who might drop by and wants to sit in front of the fireplace with me and enjoy a cuppa. And this year, I just want to tell you guys about one called Maple Espresso. Hot chocolate on hand pretty much at all times. Now, one of the reasons I do this, I don't really drink a lot of hot chocolate, and neither does Hubs, but I'll tell you who does. And that's some of the workers that come and blow my leaves or that might be helping me outside. And I always like to have hot coffee, hot tea, and some kind of hot beverage for them. Recyclable, or actually these are even compostable, but they were made from recycled material. And these are hot beverage cups that they can take with them. So when they get back into their truck to head to a different house, I can give them a refill and they can take this along with them instead of those unwieldy mugs that I cart in and out. And then the next things are kind of like kitchen/craft related. Things like clove-studded oranges, clove-studded lemons, and clementine. These are two things. I discovered these years ago and I use them every holiday. And that is both a lemon or a citrus zester and also a lemon or citrus stripper. So here's what you can do. And typically I am doing this on citrus fruit, but I don't have any right now. And that's that you can make these strips of citrus that you can then dry and use in your arrangements. What it also does is it makes these wonderful channels in your citrus. Again, this isn't as good an example, but I didn't have any fresh oranges. But it also makes it much easier to insert the cloves because you're not penetrating that thick rind on the outside of either your lemon or your orange, or in this case, your apple. And that makes it so much easier for kids. Now, in the absence of one of these strippers, you can also just take a fork and poke some holes into the fruit itself. And then in those holes, you can insert one of these little clove studs. So then I needed to decide on what kind of napkin linens I wanted to use. I always use cloth linens for Thanksgiving. I love the additional elegance and effort that it requires, and I think it makes my guests feel special. And I had a number of different ones to choose from because I have lots and lots of cloth napkins. So I could have gone with this deep russet color because it would have blended in well with the tablecloth. I also had kind of a butter yellow that I could have gone with, but the butter yellow to me read too springy, and the russet to me read too rustic. So I decided to just go with more of a neutral. And another reason that I really like these napkins is because they're extra large. And I bought off of online, I think maybe Amazon. I'll try to put a link. But these are actually tea towels, Stuart. Yeah. And so they're extra large, and I find now that in my napkins, I like them to be larger rather than smaller. The other reason that I like them is because I could fold them in such a way, and I am a big fan of different kinds of napkin folding. And one of the reasons I love this napkin fold is because I can tuck something into it. And I bought myself, because I adore dark chocolate, I bought myself some of this Uganda dark chocolate from Trader Joe's, and I was eating a piece of it. I set it down on the table, and I thought, oh my gosh, it so perfectly echoes the colors of the tablecloth and the malachite china, and it just gave another note of elegance and just an important touch of layering, I think, to really accentuate the colors that I selected, the jewel tones, which I really wanted to emphasize in a dramatic way. Plus, typically, for Thanksgiving, I always like to have a little something that each guest can take home with them. So in the past, usually I make turkey cookies, which is kind of a maple shortbread. It's an old Martha Stewart recipe, and I have used those, and I make individual cookies for each person. But this year I wanted to do something a little bit different, and when I saw how beautifully these candy bars looked with my table setting and kind of the gold foil lettering on it, it's perfect. I think so. And I also happen to know that a number of my guests like dark chocolate as much as I. Now I needed to select my candlesticks, and I selected brass because obviously brass was my metal muse for this composition. And I think I told you, Stuart, do you remember when I told you that Hubs broke one of the hurricanes that I had for the brass candlesticks that are normally here? So I needed to replace them, and I got these kind of more modern looking, a little bit more contemporary. I found these online, but here's a tip. I wanted them to be elevated, and I wanted the bottom of the hurricane to be flush with the top of the candle holder. I didn't want them to nestle all the way down towards the base. So how this came together was, this is called it's one of my essentials to have for the holidays. It's called a bobèche, and you use it to capture candle drippings so that the candle drippings and the melted wax don't get on your candle holder. But what I discovered was brilliantly, it was the same circumference as this hurricane. And you can get all of this online as the hurricane, and it fits on it, and it also elevates the hurricane so that the base of the hurricane is at the top of the candlestick, not at the bottom of the candlestick. The candles I also buy in bulk because I like to have candles just lit pretty much everywhere for the holidays. And I also try to make sure that I have someone who is my designated candle person, who both lights the candles and who is responsible for making sure that the candles are blown out before they leave. And typically that's kind of one of the last guests. That way I ensure that they're not a fire hazard. Of course, I could also use some of the battery operated tapers that I like so much, but in this case I have used real candles. tables. And then because there's typically a crowd, and because we are pretty tight, this table easily seats 6, but it can comfortably seat 8. But it does squish us together a little bit more. So because of that, I do have place cards based on the size or how demure the guests are, so that it kind of takes care of being squeezed in. So the tiny ladies typically sit in the middle, and the bigger guys, Stuart, you've been here for this before, you bigger guys typically sit in the ends where you've got a little bit more room. So I take that into account itself. Now, sometimes in the past I've had a larger group, and when I have a larger group, that will spill over into the kitchen and into the breakfast room table. But this year it is a smaller number, and so I don't have to worry about that. Now, a lot of you have asked, so how do I set it up? Is it a buffet? Do I put things on the sideboard? I typically set up the buffet in the kitchen so people can fill their plates. I bring the plates into the kitchen. People can fill their plates after, of course, we've done all of the appropriate picture taking. Now, I always make sure that I soften the butter in advance and that I have butter plates on the table. And the importance of the crystal and any kind of cut glass that you have on the table is that it's another element that will sparkle and reflect light along with the candlelight. And that, I think, is crucial to the design of putting together an effective tablescape. By the way, I got these for a wedding gift, and I think it makes one of the nicest wedding gifts ever, is a little bit fancier salt and pepper shakers that are cut glass that you can put on either end of the table. So I think that's it. There are other things that you want to remember about Thanksgiving. On my checklist is always to make sure that I have Miracle Whip, that I have white Wonder Bread, that I have iceberg lettuce for the indispensable turkey sandwiches the second day, Stuart, absolutely. So the only thing that I have not included, I guess, is just a very deep and abiding sense of gratitude for how fortunate I am to have Stuart in my life, to have the whole LV team, to have all of you followers as part of my extended family, and of course my direct family as well. So from my house to yours, happy Thanksgiving, and let me know how your table comes together. Well, I can't believe it, but it's almost time for us to start composing our Thanksgiving tables, or at the very least, planning and thinking about them. So I've already picked out my china, my table linens. I'm starting to think about the centerpiece, etc., etc. And while I'm doing it, so is our buddy John Turman. He is starting to plan his Thanksgiving tablescape, and he's going to play with us today. He's going to play with his china and his linens, and he's going to come up with something that will really make his Thanksgiving table spectacular. So thank you, John, for doing this in my absence, and who knows, you guys may like his a lot better than mine.
Take it away, John.
Thanks, Linda. Good morning, Stuart. Glad you're here. Let's see what we can do at my house with Thanksgiving. I've decided this year to use, well, first, I'm going to start with what I always do, which is a Kanta quilt on the table. I know we've talked about these a lot. These are made in India. They're very inexpensive. And our friend Lynn Sanchez sells these at her shop, Sukasa, here in Oklahoma City in the Paseo. So thanks, Lynn, for these. These are great. But anyway, I decided this year that I wanted to use some china, actually ironstone, that I bought at an estate sale, actually an estate auction, probably 40-something years ago. Oh, wow. And I just love these colors. I think this orange and the green it just really pops. And as I said, it's Mason's, but I've never been able to identify it correctly. There is a pattern from Mason's called Mandalay, which is a similar drawing, but the colors are all different. And anytime I find this online, people always identify it as Mandalay, but I'm not sure that it is, unless Mandalay was made in another colorway. So if anybody knows anything, if there's a Mason's collector, right, please help me out. I've owned these, like I said, over 40 years, and I've still yet to do it. I even took them to Antiques Roadshow, and they didn't come up with the right answer. Oh, wow. So, right. So we don't really know. But anyway, I thought these would be fun to use for Thanksgiving this year. The colors are not quite as traditional as you might think, but we're going to add some stuff to this to make it feel a little more fallish, I believe. And by the way, I do have Thanksgiving dishes, but I decided not to do that. So, yeah. So I do have some Johnson Brothers, His Majesty, if you all know that pattern, the one with the turkey on it. So what did I just step on? But I decided I wanted to do this because I haven't used these in a long time. Yeah, those glasses I've had a long time too. Those are Dansk. And remember, Dansk was so popular for probably in the late 80s and early 90s, and these are called, the pattern's Mesa. Okay, we'll get some of this plotted out here, and then we'll come back and do some adjustments. I think I'll get the silverware next.
Have you done a different thing every year that you've done this, or is there some years that you kind of do the same thing every year?
I'm going to make some noise. Yes, I usually do something different every year. One of my favorite Thanksgiving tables is set with the china that I think I used last year or the year before for Christmas, which is that white rose point, which is kind of an old-fashioned pattern. And I think we've talked about this. You know, I'm not a big seasonal person, so I really don't. Even though I have those Thanksgiving dishes, they're not my favorite thing to use always, and I don't have Christmas dishes. I don't do that, so I like to do other things with it. And so in this flatware, which I think is kind of fun, is not expensive at all. Again, an old Williams-Sonoma purchase.
I like the handles.
Yeah, and I think for fall, that's kind of a nice look, which is kind of sad because I ought to be using the silver, but I think this is a good look. So we're going to do this year. Whoops, 2 dinner forks will not work.
I couldn't get this right to save my life, probably.
Oh, I bet you could. Okay, like I said, we'll come back and straighten all this up in a minute. And then kind of to make it a little more Thanksgiving-like, I thought we'd use these brown napkins, which I think is kind of unexpected with this, but it adds a little bit of a
Matches that black in the plate.
fall.
The dark in the plate, I guess.
Yeah, it's really dark blue.
Interesting. Oh, it is. I kept the camera made it look blacker, yeah.
Yeah, it probably did, but it's really dark blue.
Starting to look good.
And these napkins are like 3 or 4 years from Pottery Barn, clearance section. So there's always a story about where things come from. And then I thought we would add some green to the table, some more green, a little different green. I got these glasses this summer at the Container Store, again, off of the clearance shelf. And let's see, let's add the flowers.
This is cool.
So I went to Trader Joe's, and you never know what you're going to find at Trader Joe's, of course, so you can't plan until you get there. I did take a picture of the plate with me so I could see some colors. But of course, I immediately saw these orange flowers, which I think are just terrific, and had no idea what they were. They weren't labeled. It just said seasonal or something on it, and got home and Googled them, and they are safflower. So that's the orange version of safflower. I think they come in yellow and orange. And then these spiky green things are called green dragon aster. And then, of course, there are mums and magnolia, which I like to use because that comes out of my own yard. So,
and the pot was included?
The pot is something I've had, again, forever. I think that's a Williams-Sonoma from a long time ago, too. And I like that dark blue because it picks up the blue in the plates.
It does. Now that I know it's blue, it looks really good.
Now you see that blue, don't you? And then I thought we would add some votives to the table. Kind of sprinkled in. Oh, actually, before we do that, I want to add these. So I have 2 of these hens, or I guess these are rooster, which were my grandmother's that are, I think, Italian pottery Stengel, which is a brand I've heard of that I think has been around for a long time. You want to get that? People probably will recognize that. Yeah. So these were my grandmother's, and I had grown up knowing these all the time. And then a friend, her father-in-law died, and there were 2 of these guinea hens in it in their estate sale. And I think they're marked differently, but they're also Italian. So I think those are really cool. And again, I just love the colors. I know they're not turkeys, but it's some kind of fowl, which provides some color and just some interest to the table. I think I'll just use, let's see, what do I want to do here? Stuart and I are walking around this table in circles. We're going to get busy.
It's kind of cool.
Actually, maybe you should come over here.
The table looks great. It really is. Like, yeah, it's cool. Watching it come to life is neat.
And then we'll put this over here. I think I'll just use one of the roosters this time instead of both of them. Things in odd numbers work well. I'm going to come behind you. Okay, now we'll add some votives to the table. And again, I'm just using kind of some non-traditional colors here just to get some interest. Everything doesn't have to be brown or orange or even gold or whatever you might do, but do that over there. And they don't even all have to go, they can just kind of go wherever on the table. And then we'll add some tea lights. I always try to pull the wick up first so that I can get them lit when it's time.
Smart.
Don't want to put it in almost put it in the water glass. So I'll use obviously the tall glass will be our wine glass, and we'll use the short one for water. And you have to kind of make sure you don't get the votives underneath the flowers because you don't want to cook anything here.
Yeah, Linda's slowly teaching me how to actually burn candles. Just burn them home to where they don't work the whole way through.
She's a master at that.
Yeah.
I don't really pay attention. Looks like I'm short one tea light. Let's see if I can find another one. Okay, now we got those on. And then I think, you might think this is enough, but I think we should add some stuff out of my marble fruit bowl over here. Maybe to get some more green and orange. And
they can't touch these things, but yeah, those are heavy marbles.
They're marble, and I think these are Italian. This is a fig, which I think is just, I love that color. I got these at an estate sale, 2 or 3 different estate sales actually. Well, it seems like the first one, I bought 3 like years ago in San Francisco at Gump's, if you remember that store. And then I started finding them at estate sales. But I think people must have collected them at some point.
It's neat to find pieces from different places that all go together.
Yes,
in one
it
thing.
is.
It's a good feeling. Connection.
Pear. I don't know. Okay.
It adds a little, doesn't it?
I think for a little straightening up here. I'm not going to get my ruler out and measure like I do on Downton Abbey, but I do like to make sure, because we have a round table, it's nice to make sure the plates kind of meet up across and just kind of get everything. And you want to make sure too that the glassware and everything is where people can use it without knocking something over, which I have made that mistake sometimes, right? Okay, I think that'll be it. Now I have to come up with a menu.
This is true.
Haven't figured that out yet. We've still got a couple of weeks here, so
it looks amazing.
or 10 days.
I'm curious to see what Linda says.
I know, me too. I'm curious to see Linda's table.
I know, right?
See what she comes up with. I know that there'll be different pieces because we don't have the same stuff, which will be great. But I bet we have some similar ideas.
Yeah, well, thank you, John.
You're
I
welcome.
really appreciate it.
Glad you stopped by.
Absolutely.
Well, yesterday it was all about Thanksgiving prep, and today, indeed, I have my tables set in the parlor, converted to a dining room. It's all about elegance, kind of casual elegance, but elegance nevertheless, in contrast to the very rustic Thanksgiving that I had last year. So today I'm going to share some entertaining tips, some Vater Thanksgiving traditions, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that concept of, is it worth the trouble? That was a comment that was made on yesterday's video, and they mentioned, boy, that's a lot of work. Well, it wasn't as much work as it seemed, but there are some things that happen one time of year, and if Thanksgiving isn't the designated time where we put forth a lot of effort into our demonstration of gratitude, then I don't know what is. So what do you say, Stuart? Let's do it. So along those lines, is it worth it to go to so much trouble? Let me just share a little bit of my philosophy about Thanksgiving. We have Friendsgiving every year. Sometimes my boys are here. Most years they are not. But who are always here are some friends. Jenny and Steve, the four Chongs come, my buddy Steve Archer and some of his family members, and then there's always other people that may or may not be here. Stuart, I think you have been here on occasion in the past. So I barely even have to give out assignments anymore. We've done this for so many years. Everybody knows what they're going to bring. We separate and delegate most of the food preparation tasks. So one person does the turkey, somebody else does the pies, blah, blah, blah. I always make the stuffing and the dressing. And along that vein, I've just been outside and I cut a lot of herbs from my garden. And these are some of the herbs that I'll be using as I make my dressing. Now, if you wanted a really simple, very simple Thanksgiving, maybe it's just a small group of 2 or 4. This in and of itself, I think, would be a beautiful centerpiece, just the herbs themselves. You could have one that is really untouched that you use for the centerpiece, and then you could have another large bowl or pitcher of the herbs that you could use just for cutting and in your food preparation. By the way, I love, recently this has been on the mantle, this blonde wood bowl. So I've got that here all ready, all prepped, washed. And by the way, you guys, here's a tip. This has been one of the best purchases I have ever made, for so many different reasons. Why I like it, it's just one of these grates that you put over your sink. And why I love it is I can put all of my produce, my lettuce, my potatoes, whatever, on top of this. I don't have to get out a separate strainer, and then I can just wash them and they can kind of dry in place. It's also great when I'm watering pots, when I'm watering my topiaries or something like that. I can just leave it here. It drains out the bottom, and then when I am ready to do my dishes, I just whisk it away. So there you go. There's just a few tips and another little morsel of our Thanksgiving policy around here at the Vater home. So I got these darling little place cards. I got this at Chirps and Cheers, which is just, yeah, Chirps and Cheers, that place on Walker that's so cute. Look, they're cute on both sides, the front and the back. They've got little pumpkins on them. So these are actually what I'm going to put on the cookies that will be the place markers for each setting. And so this will identify the person who is to sit at this spot. And I have yet, my hand still isn't working very well, you guys. My elbow. So I haven't decided who is going to sit where, but I will have these ready to fill out once the cookies arrive. And I talked to Jen about them yesterday. I'm so excited. So you'll notice that, and I'll give you a complete tour at the end, but you can see what other things I have placed on my table to complete not only the place settings, I've got all my flatware and things, but also some additional touches. So I decided that the black candlesticks looked too heavy, so I have put white in their place, white really tall ones. I'll give you a link to these. And then here's a tip. Use individual coasters that you may have. I've got some in crystal, I've got some little Spode Christmas ones, and instead of using them as coasters, I'm going to use these as small butter dishes at each end of the table. You could also use them as little salt and pepper cellars and just place them one at one end and at the other end. This way people can kind of grab the butter. I hate it and they hate it too, when you sit down, you get all settled in and you think, darn, I forgot to get the butter for my roll. This way they won't have to get up again. It'll be right here. Typically, you guys, I use long, did you hear that?
That was nice.
Yeah, it was nice. Typically, I have some long rectangular cut glass ones that I use, but these are a little bit smaller, a little bit better and more appropriate in scale. So I'm using these. So now I just need to put place cards at all of the other place settings. And you will note that indeed everyone will be sitting in the parlor for Thanksgiving. And I try to just kind of mix it up every year, who sits by whom. If people decide to switch because they've got an important conversation going with someone else, that suits me just fine. They can do whatever it is they like. On this table, I've done the same thing. I have just cut glass candle holders with those very, very long tapers and a bit of green. Now, last year, you may recall, and Stuart, right here, let's put in some footage, some stills from last year's Thanksgiving, the first at the cottage. We did it in the kitchen. It was very rustic. You may recall I had those little metal turkeys, and I'd used these fabulous tea towels. I'd use them as napkins. I have these in multiples, and I've gotten them out here now to use as actual tea towels, strategically placed throughout the cottage. This year, in contrast, I wanted to do something that was very, very elegant. Since we were doing it in the parlor, I wanted it to be all about sparkle, shine, glistening. I wanted that beautiful southern light to come in here and really reflect off of absolutely every surface if possible. Now, I think on Thanksgiving Day here in Oklahoma City, it's actually going to be cloudy and a little bit overcast. So I won't be getting that sparkle, but it will be especially beautiful with all of the candles lit and very, very warm and comforting and cottage cozy, because I'll have a little furnace lit up here. This is not a wood burning fireplace. This is one of those old-fashioned gas jet inserts. Yeah, you can see the pipe right there. And then afterwards, I've got a little bit of painting that I need to do on the hearth to really get everything looking good and looking pristine. I want to point out, I want to give a shout out, isn't this darling pumpkin? And this was a gift from one of you, a follower from Imelda Moreno, I'm not sure how I pronounce that, but it's very, very appropriate and elegant in its simplicity here on the mantle with more candles. So I think it'll be really nice. I have removed most of the furniture, you may note, with the exception of this chair here. At Hub's request, he requested that I leave it in place because this will be his chair here. And Hubs is a man that does not like to sit in these kinds of chairs for any length of time. Consequently, he will eat, but he said, if you leave this chair in the corner while everybody is still sitting here, I can sit in a comfy dad chair and I can still hold court without him having to move too far. So, okay, so I will make that concession. Eventually, as I told you, these will be filled with different kinds of things like rolls and cranberry salad and ice water, etc., etc. And this will be here easily within reach. If Dad is here, I will be here in my mom chair, and I can just reach over here and I can get whatever anyone needs. Of course, we'll have wine on the tables, and there will also be wine outdoors outdoors because I hope we'll be able to light a fire outdoors and spend a lot of time out there. That's where most of the drinks will be kept. But then this will convert to kind of a small bar. These things will be relocated, and then this will become the dessert bar once everyone arrives. And I like to, here's another tip, to really go to the trouble to make those desserts, especially if they're homemade pies, make them look especially, well, elevated, let's say. Let's literally elevate them. So I've got some cake stands, and everything will be at a different eye level, and I think it'll be really, really beautiful. And I will make sure that I take pictures of absolutely everything, because then not only will I be able to enjoy it on the day, I am enjoying it the week before, I will be able to enjoy it into perpetuity because I will take pictures of all these beautiful vignettes. So yes, for me, it is very much worth the effort, especially because I'm not doing the majority of the cooking. You know, here's another thought. Which would you rather do? All of the cooking and all of the beautification and the hostessing, or would you rather be able to concentrate on one or the other? For me, I would rather concentrate on one, put more effort into it. And it's one of those kind of things that I think before it's done, we think, oh gosh, this is so much work. Do I really want to put forth the effort? But then after we do, after it looks so beautiful, after everyone is appreciating it and we have full tummies, we are so glad we did, and we have no regrets. And I think that's what is sadder, is when you have regrets instead of maybe being a little bit sad because you're just too lazy and you don't want to put it together. I'm not accusing anyone of being lazy. I'm just saying that's kind of my attitude, because there were a lot of comments. Boy, that's a lot of work. And Stuart, what did you say?
Oh, what did I say?
You said actually it wasn't that much work.
Oh no, yeah, because it didn't.
No.
It did not feel like it to me at all. Yeah, we got it up in pretty quick time.
Yeah, all we did was move a couple of tables in here and move that out, and then I set a beautiful spread. So for me, so was it worth the effort? That's the theme of this video, and absolutely it was. Okay, here's a few other reminders that are very important here at the Vater household. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you would add to this list. Okay, top of my philosophy about Thanksgiving, one of the very top lines is, I do not believe in, nor do I serve appetizers on Thanksgiving. Because if you wait until the big day to eat the feast and then you've got these appetizers out, then what most of us do instinctively is we just are starving, so we eat too many of the appetizers, and we lose our appetite then for the main meal. Plus then we have to clean up all of that mess. It's that many more dishes. So in case you haven't gotten the point, I emphatically do not believe in appetizers for Thanksgiving. Now, again, if you do, and it's very, very traditional for you, then you do you, I'll do me. There's no wrong answer. There is just what is traditional at your home. Some other things on my list, never to forget. Number 1, have someone bring or make sure you have on hand Miracle Whip and White Wonder bread for the inevitable turkey breast sandwiches that you will have after the holiday. Specifically, also, you might want to have on hand some iceberg lettuce. At least that's what is traditional at our house. Remember, the morning of, go ahead and take out your sticks of butter so that the butter is softened when you have it on the plates at each place setting. And don't forget salt and pepper shakers. Make sure in advance that those are filled. Something else that I try to keep on hand. I used to keep plastic takeout containers, some of which I would get and save from local restaurants when we would dine out. Some of them I would have on hand and I would buy. I try to minimize the use of those now. What I do use in their place are these compostable quart-sized size bags. You can also get them in gallon size bags. They take up a lot less room in your cupboard. They are easy to just whip out. And as I said, they're compostable if you are giving someone takeaways, leftovers, or you're storing your own leftovers in the refrigerator. Make sure that you've got some of these on hand. I love the elegance, the simple beauty, and the inherent joy and pleasure of striking a match. And I think at this time of year, these long matches are really indispensable. And by the way, I think they make a fun hostess gift. So if you've got a container that came, say, from Trader Joe's that had a plant in it, but it still looks good and it matches the aesthetic of your home, then just get a supply of these long reach matches, put them in there, get a strike pad that adheses to the side, and I think this is a really nice gift. I keep these by my fireplace. The other reason I like them is if you've got lots of candles to light in your dining room for your dining room Thanksgiving spread, then you can go from one candle to the other without the short matches expiring. You could also use one of those little clicker things, but somehow that's just not essential. So I really like these long matches. Something else I like to have on hand around the holidays is I'm making flower arrangements, and that is these skewers, not because I am making shish kebab or sushi, but because I usually at some point in the holidays like to use fresh fruits and vegetables in my flower arrangement. You can see from my hydrangea arrangement that I've got some pumpkins in them, and what you do is then you just skewer the fruit in like a stemmed bloom. You just put it in place, and obviously you can control the length of the skewer, but these are just invaluable, I think, for using in your centerpiece decor. I love these, and I think they're fun to have on hand. Also, if you are going to have an appetizer spread before or after Thanksgiving or whatever, they're also handy to have in place for that. So sometimes these are things that I delegate out. I'll have somebody bring, okay, you bring the Wonder Bread and you bring the Miracle Whip. I will also sometimes designate a potential ice bringer. So bags of ice for the Yeti that we keep outside. Somebody is a designated ice getter. They know to just go back there, dump the ice. I don't even have to think about it, so that we have adequate amounts of ice. Lastly, this week, before the big day, I will be cleaning out my refrigerator. I will be going ahead and prepping some of my produce, cutting up my onions, my celery, etc., that I've got for, that I will be needing in assembling my stuffing, my Thanksgiving stuffing. And I want to make sure that I've got refrigerator room for that. So I'm going to be cleaning out my refrigerator and doing kind of a cleaning out skim on my pantry to make sure that when my guests are here and they're looking for something in the pantry, that they pull out one thing and the entire pantry does not come apart. So these are some of the little things that I have learned from experience to help me make Thanksgiving Day itself go a little bit more smooth. So Stuart, I don't know if you know, but on Thanksgiving Day, the high is just 48, the low is 29. It's probably going to be our first freeze of the year of 2024. And because of that, I know guests will probably be wearing jackets and heavier clothing than they typically are and have been. So one thing I want to make sure that I take care of is that my coat racks are all free and clear, so they can just walk in the door and they can hang them up, since my coat closet is now an entertainment closet. Even my hooks will be bare so that the women folk can hang their purses, or I'll have another destination for the purses themselves. That kind of helps last minute clutter. Another tip, I typically have one person who is the triage, the Thanksgiving triage person, and they will tell everyone when they arrive what goes where. Take the wine out there, put the desserts here, the ice goes back there, the turkey is going to be carved here. A lot of this they will know from last year, but if they don't, I will have someone here doing Thanksgiving turkey triage, and they can tell everyone what to put where. That helps tremendously because then I don't have to stop what I am doing to show them where everything goes. There'll be a designated person here who can orchestrate and choreograph the
I'm just
beginning.
picturing him with a headset and a clipboard.
Yes, very regimented, but they will do it ever so graciously. I'm kind of seeing Maggie Chung as that point person this year. Well, today it's all about follower gifts. These were a gift to me by a follower. They've been one of my favorite things I've gotten in the mail. And I'm not saying this to encourage you guys to send me gifts. I just do like to point them out occasionally. I love these earrings. They've got kind of a tassel feel to them. Anyhow, these were a gift from a follower. My apron. You guys have seen me wear this apron before. I absolutely love it. I have it in 2 different colors, and I think it makes a great hostess gift. It looks both crafty, kitcheny, and gardeny. So it is a triple play, and I'll put the link to this below. My shirt underneath, well, my top is very feminine. It's got a few ruffles to it. It is quince. I really like it. My belt, I don't remember where I got it. I got it from someplace. My breeches, I think these were the wide leg, high-waisted jeans that I got at Target. If I can find a link, I will share. These are my comfy, cozy slippers / boots that are kind of a knockoff from Uggs. Let's see, what else do I have on? Oh, my beautiful wrist brace for my golfer's elbow. I got this online, and this ring belonged to my second mom. So there you go. There is my outfit du jour. Here's another entertaining quick tip. Whenever you're going to have a large number of guests, make sure that you have a designated charging area with enough iPhone chargers so that everyone can get their power on without having to ask you to find one, to locate one. You will already have a station ready made. That way, the person who is your triage director at the front door can point them in the direction of your chargers. This is not where mine is going to be, but nevertheless, it's a tip I didn't want to forget to tell you. Okay, not only do we want to make preparations for the big meal itself, I have learned from experience that it's also a good idea to make preparations for breakfast the morning of Thanksgiving, because just as I'm getting ready to get my cooking mojo on and really doing last minute things, that's when Hubs wants to come in and he wants to start grazing. And he wants to make, bacon and eggs and all that kind of thing. Way too heavy of a meal, I think, before the big Thanksgiving meal in the late afternoons. So I am going to prepare this time by baking a couple of different things that we can just have with our coffee. Probably we'll add a little fruit, maybe a little bit of yogurt to this. And I've got 2 different recipes. One, it's a healthy pumpkin bread recipe from Cookie and Kate. It uses coconut oil, pumpkin puree, things that are healthier alternatives to the ingredients. And I'm going to be making this today. And Stuart, do you want to share your little...
Well, it was a few years back making pumpkin bread. I made it once, and it tasted rotten when I got done. Had no idea why it tasted rotten.
Excuse me, this was a recipe from your daughter.
Yeah, my daughter makes amazing pumpkin bread, and so I was trying to make her pumpkin bread. And the first batch tasted just horrible. I had no idea why. Made it again. Thought surely I made sure I did everything right, used everything appropriately. Tasted horrible again. Realized I was using garlic coconut oil
instead of regular
coconut oil.
So that you said was real tiny. So Stuart, the lesson there is to read the fine print. Is it not? Okay, I want to share with you another gift that a follower sent me. And this one is hysterical because any of you who are living with a spouse who has just recently retired can appreciate this message. Behind every great man is the drawer I need to get into. What are you even doing in the kitchen right now? Okay, that would kind of be how it is on Thanksgiving morning as I'm trying to make preparations. He's in here trying to, hunt and gather for something to eat. Okay, so I'm going to make this healthy pumpkin bread, and I will put the link to the recipe up. I'll be making this today. Something else I'm going to make, and I'm a little bit infatuated with, I get fixations on the strangest things. When I was at Movara, and I will be sharing this recipe going forward, my favorite thing there were these healthy apple high fiber muffins high protein, high fiber muffins that they served. And they served them in these kind of liners, not traditional cupcake liners, but in these traditional liners. And it just made a subtle difference. It made it seem so much more like a bakery item. So I ordered some of these. I'll put the link to these too, because I think they're just fun and it looks kind of special in there in kind of a Thanksgiving color. The strangest things I know give me a great deal of pleasure. So that's what's going to be going on Thanksgiving morning. By the way, I will be baking this healthy pumpkin bread in my Harvest loaf pan. I love this loaf pan. I've also got one with Santas on it, or no, snowmen on it, but it doesn't seem to, I don't know, it doesn't seem to have the same vibe. This one just always works a little bit better. So there you go. Stay tuned for some final thoughts, and then it's just time for us all to get ready for the big day.